Hey there, Heather Holder, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another Cutter Top 10 videos. And stupidly, I'm not wearing what I should be wearing. Fortunately, though, I have a plan. If you're thinking, well, what type of top 10 are you setting up, Mr. Diamond? Well, I'm glad you asked. This Arkansas, representing both NCAA football and basketball. And we're going to be doing a couple of NCAA lists. Our first major list is the top 10 Rose Bowls of all time. And no, Arkansas has never put in a Rose Bowl, mostly because they're part of the SEC and they are not part of the college football playoff and, a top BCS team and all that. So, yeah, the Razorbacks have never done that. So, yeah, the Rose Bowl has been one of the biggest movements ever. All right, so here we go. Rose Bowls from 10 to 1. Number 10 is the 2017 slugfest between the USC Trojans and the Penn State Nittany Lions. Both these teams were important in the BCS rankings, but did not get into the college football playoff. USC was led by Sam Darnold, and Penn State was led by Trace McSorley, throwing the ball and all that. It was a slugfest because it was a 52-49 game, 101 points, which at the time was the highest scoring Rose Bowl ever. And the fact that, it was big and all that. There were comebacks by both teams. Penn State went to the well one too many times with long passes by Trace McSorley, and it ended up being brutal as he gave up a big interception, and then USC, with no time left, kicked a 40-plus yard field goal to win the Rose Bowl. Of course, they used to play in the Rose Bowl stadium. No, sorry, that was UCLA, but yeah, SC knew they had California route. Number 9 is the 1992 Rose Bowl between Washington and Michigan. Washington was undefeated. They were the Pac-10 champions. They were pretty much important. Of course, this was the time in which the Rose Bowl had almost always been Big Ten versus Pac-10. Contrary to popular belief, this arrangement actually only started in 1947. It would be basically a Pac-10 team versus a team from the East. Anyway, Washington was looking to go undefeated, and Michigan was looking to give Desmond Howard, who was the Heisman Trophy winner, pulled the Heisman polls against OSU. Reason to celebrate. However, Washington won 34-14, and Mario Bailey, the wide receiver, famously mocked the Heisman celebration on Woodson. No, not Woodson, sorry, on Desmond Howard. Washington got their share of the national title. Miami also won. Number 8 is the 1929 thing between the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets and the Cal Bears. Of course, as this was the key example of the Pac-10 Big Ten matchup not even happening, or the Pac-8 as it was known as. California was the Pac-8 champion. Georgia Tech was one of the best teams out east, so they got invited. This game would be memorable for one play only. Never mind that Georgia Tech won the game 8-7. The famous play was when Georgia Tech was running the ball, fumbled it, and Roy Riegels, who was playing two ways, as you always do, got the ball, and then somehow in his excitement spun around the wrong way and ran towards his own end zone. Benny Long, the Cal captain, managed to stop Riegels and point him to the right direction. And all of a sudden, well, it's like 100,000 people were there trying to tell Roy Riegels to stop, stop, stop. But he didn't. Unfortunately, he got tackled at the one. Cal decided to punt on the next play, but it was blocked at the end zone for 2 points. Georgia Tech went 8-7. And Roy Riegels would be famously known as Wrong Way Riegels. He would be getting a lot of gag presents and all that. However, Roy Riegels did reach out in 1964 to Jim Marshall, the Vikings player who ran the ball the wrong way for 2 points for San Francisco. But fortunately for him, his team won the game. Yeah, she agrees with me. that, he reached out to Jim Marshall. He showed class. Even Georgia Tech showed class, giving Roy Regal's induction into their Hall of Fame and actually giving him a Letterman's jacket. That's nice. Number 7 is the 2002 battle between Miami and Nebraska. This was the first year that in the BCS playoff format that the Rose Bowl got to be the national championship. The new rule was that of the they did a 4-year rotation of the big bowls: Rose, Orange, Sugar, and I think it was Fiesta. Yeah, Cotton was not a top 4 thing, but for a national championship game to be played. So the Rose Bowl would be the de facto BCS title game and not a Big Ten versus Pac-10 battle. Miami and Nebraska would battle. Even though Nebraska did eventually get to the Big Ten, they weren't Big Ten at the time. So Nebraska was in. Miami crushed them 37-14, dominating and becoming the national champion. But one big problem, though. Nebraska really wasn't supposed to be there for one main reason. Nebraska got their asses whipped by Colorado on the day after Thanksgiving, 2002, giving up 62 points, and Chris Brown getting 4 touchdown runs. And no, that's not the same Chris Brown who did unspeakable things to Rihanna. Anyway, Colorado got robbed. They actually went to the Big 12 championship game and lost, meaning that they had to find someone for Miami, and it was Nebraska, even though that they put Colorado put a 62 burger on them. Kind of weird. Number 6 is the 2018 battle between Georgia and Oklahoma. Just when you think the 2017 one was drama, the next one in the list was. It was a double overtime thriller that actually did set the record for most points in a Rose Bowl, although it was in overtime. So the college football playoff semifinal would rotate, and the Rose Bowl would get it. This was the second time. Well, they did a 3-year rotation. This was the second time that the CFP would have the semifinal in the Rose Bowl. The first time was 2015, Oregon versus Florida State. That's not memorable, unless you're an Oregon fan, because Marcus Mariota and the Ducks put a 59 burger up on Florida State, who had that 30-plus game winning streak on the line, and Javarius Crabcakes Winston there. But yeah, Georgia and Oklahoma, it was a battle. Both teams had been down by multiple touchdowns. Sony Michel put up 3 touchdown runs, and they had the reverse to Baker Mayfield to end the first half. It was amazing. In overtime, both teams kicked a field goal, and then they went to double overtime, and then Oklahoma missed a sure field goal. It was partially blocked. So Georgia had a chance, and even though they had 2nd and 15, Sony Michel got the ball on a direct snap and ran down the left-hand side. Touchdown. Georgia was going to go to the national title game, which ironically would be held in Atlanta, but they would lose to Bama in a famous throw from Tua Tagovailoa. Say that 3 times fast. It was great. It was an offensive fireworks show. Georgia and Oklahoma turned up the lights. Number 5 is the 1975 Rose Bowl, USC versus OSU. This was, of course, the Big Ten, Pac-10 thing. But, it was huge and all that. Ohio State was looking to clinch at least a part of the national championship, as is USC. It was a tight game. It was 17-10 for OSU, but then USC made a big pass to John McKay Jr. That's right. John McKay, the USC coach's son. Touchdown made it 17-16. Then SC decided to go for 2, knowing that if they failed to make the 2-point convert, they were in trouble. But they pulled a rabbit out of their hat. They scored the 2-point convert. USC took an 18-17 lead and made it stick. It was a hard-fought Rose Bowl. It was one of the best Rose Bowls around. Number 4 is the 1997 Rose Bowl between OSU and ASU. Another Big Ten, Pac-10 matchup, but this was huge. Arizona State had shocked everyone in the Pac-10 and the country. Everyone figured that ASU would have a national title under their belts if they could just take care of OSU. Of course, this is the school the previous year, or was it that year? I think it was that year in the previous year, that they hosted Nebraska, and beat Nebraska 19-0 on home turf, which they named Frank Kush Field. Ohio State were kind of a little bit of an underdog and all that. I mean, yeah, they did lose to Michigan, but, they got in somehow. Nevertheless, Arizona State with Jake the Snake Plummer had a golden chance. But then Joe Germain came from behind and made a massive touchdown pass. I would say to Galloway, but I'm probably wrong. Ohio State, with a minute and a half left, Ohio State shocked Arizona State, ruining their national title hopes. And all that. Yeah, this is the 96 season. Yeah, that's right. No, sorry, it was that season that Arizona State beat Nebraska. But yeah, 96 was a magical time. Number 3 is the 2005 Rose Bowl between Texas and Michigan. Of course, the Big Ten, Pac-10 thing was upset with the fact that because there was a big BCS Bowl and the Rose Bowl, Texas got the bid ahead of the Pac-10 champion. But let's not forget that USC was in the Sugar Bowl with the chance to be the national champion. So thus it goes to the next team, and Texas was up. Michigan won the Big Ten, which was great, and all that. This actually was the back end of a great ABC New Year's Day doubleheader because the first game was the Capital One Bowl between Iowa and LSU, and Drew Tate seemingly forgot how much time was left on the clock, but he threw a winning touchdown pass with triple zeros on the clock, upsetting LSU and sending Iowa into raptures. But yeah, Texas-Michigan was a battle. Well, Michigan did not give up, neither did Texas. Texas's Rose Bowl debut was huge, 38-37 over Michigan. They needed a field goal from Dusty Trail Mangum. Vince Young dazzled with 372 total yards and 5 touchdowns. And if you think I'm done talking about Vince Young and the Rose Bowl, you got another thing coming to you. Number 2 is the 1963 Rose Bowl between SC and Wisconsin. And this was a case of, the bowl tie-ins actually coming into play and working for the system. Everyone hates the fact that number 1 and number 2 don't meet in the final. Now, of course, this is pre-BCS 1998. But the fact of the matter is that you rarely saw a 1 versus 2 match in a bowl game because of the tie-ins and all that. But this time it worked, as SC, the champs of the Pac-8, took on the Big Ten champion Wisconsin. And it was 1 versus 2. This was the dream matchup the Rose Bowl had been waiting for in 1963. Wisconsin was down by 20-plus points and almost pulled off a rabbit out of the hat. But the fact was, it was USC 42, Wisconsin 37. It was big. And the Wisconsin quarterback had a Rose Bowl record 400-plus passing yards, which would be broken only 4 decades later. And number 1, by a long shot, is 2006, Texas at SC. Like I said about Vince Young, this wasn't the last time I was going to talk about Vince Young. Texas would take on SC. This was set in stone. This was the Rose Bowl. This was the BCS national title game because of the rotation. So the Rose Bowl was going to host it. And yes, the Pac-10 was represented, but not the Big Ten. But yeah, Texas versus SC was the big one. And SC was riding a 30-plus game winning streak. They had Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush, and also Lendell White. Texas had Vince Young, Limas Sweed, if I'm correct, and I would say Kenneth Sims, but obviously wrong. Nevertheless, this was one of the greatest games of all time. It was a battle. Vince Young versus Matt Leinart. Texas SC. Texas was not heavily favored. SC was looking to go back-to-back national Hatties. National. But the fact is, I picked Texas to beat SC because I'm like, I think Texas has the best chance to knock off SC. This game went through a lot. Both teams with questionable turnovers and questionable decisions, especially SC not putting the ball on 4th and 2 and giving Texas good field position for the winning score. 4th and 5, the national title on the line. Keith Jackson, in one of his last access college football play-by-play guy for ABC, did it. He's headed for the corner. He's got it. Vince Young's great touchdown run on 4th and 5 sealed it, and Texas shocked SC and shocked the whole country, saying that Vince Young was invincible. Invincible. Unfortunately, though, the NFL will not be kind to Vince Young. But the fact of the matter is, it's a roast bowl for all time. Texas and SC. Think about it. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.